Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys have had a great week. I've had a pretty good week. I've mentioned previously that I've been preparing for some shows in April and in the upcoming months, and my show prep is going really well. I have a lot of stuff ready. Yesterday I was even packing some stuff up for the frolic next week. Usually I'm packing stuff like the day before, so I feel like I'm in a really good place, and that has meant more knitting time, and that's never a bad thing, right? So I actually have some stuff to show to you today, and I'm very excited about it. What do I have? I have a finished object. I have the start of a new project. Of course, I've started something new, right? I have progress on my stripes and stranded socks. I have a KAL announcement, that's exciting, and then I have, of course, my collection from the fabrics that you chose from last week. So let's get started, shall we? So let's start with my finished object, and oh my god, it's so cute! I cannot wait to show you this. Okay, so last week I showed you the start of a little dachshund that I was making for the Stuffie KAL that Crafty from Relatively Crafty is doing in her group. And I enjoy making stuffies. I haven't made them in a while, and this has been the perfect thing to just kind of reignite that I don't want to call it a passion, because I'm not passionate about making stuffies, but it has reignited that just interest. Like, I find them really fun to make. And this pattern is the perfect example about why I love to make stuffies when I do make them. So, are you ready? Here he comes. And you're not even going to be able to handle how cute this guy is, okay? Okay. Look at his little face. Is it not adorable? So this is my finished dachshund, and this pattern is the Dashing Dachshund by Ella Austin, and it was a lot of fun to make. And like I said, it has all the details I love about making stuffies. One of the things I love is that with most patterns, there's nothing complicated about them. Like, most times it's just knits and purls and increases and decreases, and it just depends on where those are placed and how they're used to give you some really interesting shaping, and you just, the toys can come to life with that. And it's like I said, it's not complicated, but in the end you just have this thing that just it just looks like exactly what it's supposed to look like. Like, I just love how this designer, like, you see with the ears, how she used shaping there. She didn't do just like, you know, a plain regular like ear shape. Like, she used some increases and decreases, and it just adds to the personality. And then I know there were short rows up here. There was some double increases when you're doing the body, and it looks exactly like a little wiener dog, right? I only made a few changes to this pattern, and it wasn't because it was a poor pattern. It was an excellent pattern. It was just based on personal preferences. So the first thing I changed was with his little nose. The pattern had you cast on with the nose color, and then after like 2 rows, change to the body color. And I just didn't want to deal with that with so few stitches and so few rows. So I started with the body color, and then when I was all done and he was all stuffed, I just did a little bit of stitching with a darker color for his nose. And I think it looks just fine. The next thing I did differently was with his little sweater. I mentioned this last week, how the pattern comes with a different motif for his sweater, but I decided to go through one of my stitch books and find a different pattern that had a similar stitch count, so it was very easy to plunk in, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think the scale works for him. I like the pattern. It was a very easy pattern, and I'm happy with that, how that turned out too. And I mentioned last week too, with just working color work, and how I was using the technique described by Ellie from Skeindeer Knits with ColorWORK knitting, how if you give each row a little tug, how it can help even out your tension. And I just love how smooth this turned out. I am not a ColorWORK knitter, more on that later, but I don't consider myself a ColorWORK knitter. And the pattern actually has written in it to, before you stuff him, you're supposed to take your stitches off your needles, put it on waste yarn, and block the color work, like wet block the color work before, and then let it dry, and then put it back on your needles, and then finish up and stuff them and everything, just to even out the color work. I did not have to do that. I just went straight from knitting him, I stuffed him, I finished him, and I don't think there's any difference in tension whatsoever. So that little blocking as you go technique, I love it. I am so happy with it. So that was my second change. My third change was with his little tail. The pattern was written. The pattern was written where you started with so many stitches and you kept that number of stitches for the whole length of the tail. And I just felt, looking at the pattern, that it looked more like a rodent tail. It was very long. It was very, like, you know, it was the same size all the way through. And it reminded me more of like a rat tail or something like that. I didn't want my little doggy to have a rat tail. So I decided, and I don't know if you can see it. You might be able to see right about there. All I did was like decrease like 2 stitches, so that I went from the starting amount of stitches down to a smaller amount of stitches before I ended it. And I think I also made it a little shorter. So I think it just gives him a more natural puppy tail. So that was the third change. And then the last change I made was instead of making the limb, so all the little bits and pieces like the legs and the ears and the tail, were you knit them separately and sewed them on. And what I did instead was I picked up the stitches and knit down from the toy so that it was all attached. I didn't have to sew anything on. And that worked really, really well. All you're doing when you do that is you know how like the knit stitches have like a little V shape? You just go through and you pick up one leg of those V's with your needles, and you pick up as many stitches as the pattern is telling you to cast on. Now, it worked in my favor this time that the legs were written from the top down, so I didn't have to reverse anything. I was just able to pick up and then knit down. And same with the ears. Everything was written from kind of like the top down, so it was very easy to modify that and to pick up from the toy. And then when I was done, when I knit his little legs and I knit all his little pieces, he was done. And I sewed on his little face last night. I just used some contrast sock yarn, and I am so happy. That was trouble. He's decided to play with the toy. We'll see how noisy he gets. But yes, I am so happy with him, and I've decided that he needs a name. And I would like some suggestions. If you could tell me, he's a dashing dachshund, so I would like a dapper name for him. And if you have any suggestions, let me know, and we will name him, and he will probably live on my shelf with all my other little bits and bobs. So that is him, and I think I am so happy with how he turned out. So now I just have to take a picture and pop him in Christy's KAL. And then my next project that my new project that I started. Going back to Christy's KAL. So I wasn't planning on doing multiple toys for her KAL. Maybe there's one other one that I kind of have in my mind, and I'll maybe talk about that one next week. But last week, after my episode last week, someone commented in the thread for the episode in my Ravelry group about 2 little figures that live on my shelf. And if you're a keen observer, you might notice that there's someone missing, or 2 people missing. And that's because I have them here to show you. So someone commented on these little guys, and his mask just fell off, so let me fix that. Okay. Someone commented on these little guys. So if you know who these are, then we can be best friends, okay? Okay. So Dread Pirate Roberts and Fezzik from, of course, the Princess Bride movie. Now, I did not make these. These came in a swap that I did several years ago. On Ravelry, there's a swap group called the Odd Duck Swap Group. And they put swaps together for every interest possible. If there's something that you love, chances are at some point they will have a swap for it. That's also where I got my mug, my friend's mug. I love this mug. And they did a friend swap, and I had to participate in that too, right? So I did a I did a Princess Bride swap, and my partner made these for me. And it was funny because when I was preparing, when I was gathering ideas for the package that I was going to send to my partner, I had actually looked on Ravelry. You know, I go into the search function and you type in Princess Bride, and a whole bunch of patterns came up. These little patterns came up, and I had actually thought momentarily, oh, that would be cute, but I think I couldn't decide on which one to make, and the patterns are all kind of separate, and to buy all the patterns to make all the characters, that was like a big time investment and a big financial, well, not a big financial investment, but you know, it was still patterns, right? So I decided to go another route. But my partner made these for me, and they have always lived on my little shelf. And then last week, someone commented, and they're just like, "Oh my God, is that Dread Pirate Roberts and Fezzik?" And I was just like, "Yeah." And then I was like, you know what? They need, at this point, the rest of the cast. So knowing that those patterns existed, I went back on Ravelry to look them up, and I've decided to make some of the other characters. And I'm going to start with this one. Who's this going to be? Can you see that? It's a little crazy right now because I've only done the head, but this is going to be, the pattern on Ravelry is called Pretty Pretty Princess, and I'll pop a picture in. And the designer is Ann D'Angelo, and she has a whole bunch of patterns, like fandom type patterns, like all kinds of characters. Chances are, if there's something that's, you know, in the mainstream of popularity that you love, she might have a pattern for it. So I decided to do this one first because it was a single pattern. So it was a $4 US pattern. And honestly, like, having just done the head, I'm working on the hair right now. Like, she's kind of got the Medusa look going on right now. I'm not done, so she's still being styled. But having only worked this far on this Stuffie, I'm pretty happy with the pattern. I don't think I'd have any reservations. There's another pattern that has the other, like, Indigo Montoya. I have to make him. So and it's like, it's got the 3 of them. So I think I'm gonna get that one too. Even though I already have this guy, I think I'm still gonna get it so I can make the other 2. So I'm working on her right now, and I'm really, really enjoying the pattern. Again, it's kind of like how I was talking about with the Dachshund. There's nothing particularly complicated about what you're doing in the pattern. Like, I read through the pattern, which was very amazing because she threw all these quotes from the movie in it, so that was fun. But like, none of the pieces are complicated. So yes, like this hair, there's a lot of it, and you make a lot of pieces and you sew them on. But like, they're just the way they're shaped, and like you can see these ones here are a little thicker to give her more of a hairstyle. And I know when I get to the dress, there's several pieces that you layer to give that kind of, that fashioned look from the movie. But none of the pieces are difficult to do. It's just once they're done and once they're put together, it's all those little details that make up that finished look. And that's what I really, really enjoy about toy making. So I started this yesterday. It's been going pretty quickly, and I've been lucky enough that I've been able to use Stash. I was a little worried, but I remembered I have another project that needs like a skin color, so I had that. This one here, the hair, this has been in my stash forever. I bought this years and years and years ago to make Avery some animal toys, and I never did. And so this is the Willow Fawn. I will be able to get this skein out of my stash by doing all her hair. I'm just going to keep going until it runs out. And then the body, I have like the face and the dress are some Red Heart Super Saver. And then I think I just need to go to Michael's because I'm going to need some eyes for her. I don't have any blue safety eyes. And there's also a gold belt and an optional like little crown piece. And I think I would like to do that. Sirens again. We're on a route. I think I would like to do the little crown, and I'm going to go to Michael's and get some metallic embroidery floss, I think. Because to buy a whole skein of metallic yarn, if that even exists, I don't think is worth it for the amount that I have to do. So she is going to hopefully have some progress next week. I am very excited. I am excited about having the cast of the movie. And I think there's even a pattern for the ROUS, and I think that's going to have to happen too. I was working on this last night, and Avery saw it, and she's like, "Is that for me?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "Well, what are you making? Is it a doll?" I'm like, "Well, kind of, but, you know, no." And she's like, "Can I play with it?" I was like, "Okay. I'm going to finish this, and if you can tell me who this is, you can play with them." Because she has seen the movie, and so we'll see. We'll see if she can recognize it. Or I think I told her that she can only play with them if we watch the movie. That might have been it. But anyway, we'll see how it looks when it's done. I'm super excited. So this is going to be toy number 2 for Christy's Stuffie KAL, and if I make the whole cast, there's going to be more, right? It's a 3-month KAL, so there's lots of time. So I hope you're excited about the Princess Bride Stuffies, because there's probably going to be more of them. But yeah, so that's my progress on that. That's all I have for her. It's just this like floating head. So hopefully there'll be a body next week. So that's that. Okay, so next project. I've got progress on my stripes and stranded socks. Now, what did I tell you last week? I was saying how I was really hoping I could get the first sock done, but I wasn't sure if that was going to happen just because I had all this show prep and all this work to do, and I don't know how it happened. But I finished the first sock. I am so pleased with this project so far. You can see here's my little narwhal. And if anybody's wondering, these little charms, they're not marketed as knitting charms. They're actually bracelet charms. They're from a company called Charm-It, and I find them at Mastermind Toys. And they have a whole little rack with all different interests, and they're pretty light. Some of them are heavy, so you have to kind of like just pick them up and see. But I have a bunch of these, and I know, Jen, you have a bunch of these too, but they work really well as knitting progress keepers. So this is where I was when I showed you last week. I was right there. I had just finished the heel. I was able to finish the whole rest of the sock this week. I swear that this project is one that attracts knitting fairies. Do you ever have knitting fairies? Because I swear I didn't work on these. I swear I didn't. Maybe once, maybe twice, and yet the whole sock is done. So I don't know how that happened, but I am loving this project. I have the toe for the next one cast on, and I think I've decided, I was speaking last week about how for the second sock I was going to probably do the same charts but just in different places so that it wasn't an exact, like, they weren't exactly the same. And I think what I've decided to do is I'm going to work backwards. So when I'm right at the point where I'm starting the color work on that second sock, I'm going to start with this chart and then repeat all these same charts but in the opposite order. So I think that's what I'm going to do for the second sock. And I have to say I really, really, really enjoy this pattern. The fit of the sock, I had talked about last week as well, how I cast on, there's 2 sets of numbers in the pattern. There's a smaller size and a larger size, and I cast on the smaller size for the foot, and then right when I was doing the heel, I cast on half of the difference on the one side and the rest of the difference on the other side, so that as I was working up the leg, I was working with the larger size. And I've tried these on, and they are very comfortable. I cannot wait to start wearing these. So yeah, I love how these turned out. And I know you guys are loving them too, because I've seen at least 1 or 2 people start them, and I've heard some other people are planning on starting them. So this kind of got the wheels turning in my little head. And so yeah, so now I'm going to talk about some group news. So I think that's all I have to say about these. I will show again the yarns that I'm using. The blue is White Birch Fiber Arts, and this is Electric Slide, and the red is a Wool-Mize. So this pattern is written for a semi-solid and then a self-striping, and you use the semi-solid within the self-striping to do the color work. So it just ends up looking like you've done all this work and you really haven't, and you just get these really cool, awesome socks in the end. So highly, highly, highly recommend this pattern. So speaking about colorwork. So I mentioned before that I don't consider myself a colorwork knitter, which is why I find this very amusing. But I made these socks, and then I made the little Dachshund with his little colorwork sweater. And then, you know, I was looking through my queue and my favorites, trying to see, you know, what projects I want to start working on coming up next, which ones I have planned for the year. I've talked about my Crafty bingo before. In the Bling string group, we're doing a Crafty bingo. Just seeing, okay, what projects kind of fit into that, and what can I kind of gear up for in the coming weeks and the coming months. And I noticed that in my queue and in my favorites, I have a ton of colorwork projects. I think secretly deep down I want to be a colorwork knitter. I'm just very attracted to colorwork projects. So working on these socks and having so many people comment about how they love the socks and how they've started the socks, I've decided to do a KAL for the podcast. So this will be in the Blinger string group. I always have like year-long make-alongs. I have Crafty bingo. I have a sock blank one where anything you make with a sock blank you can enter. I have my monthly show and tells that you can post any project you've made in that month. But this will be the first KAL for the podcast. So we are going to do a ColorWORK-IT KAL. And I envision in my head, you know, like all those you know, on TV when they're like, work it, right? So I envision it with, you know, in a sassy tone and like, you know, the finger snap and everything. I'm not that sassy, so I'm not gonna do it. But just envision that when you say the ColorWORK-IT KAL. And for this KAL, I've decided it can be any color work project. Anything. I don't care how big, how small. I don't care if you've started already, because I think a lot of times with color work, especially if it's not something you do on a regular basis, you may start it and then put it down and not get back to it. I know that's the case for me anyway. So it can be a whip, it can be a new project, it can be, as long as it's color work. And any kind of color work other than just changing colors to make stripes. So that's not included, but if it's stranded, if it's intarsia, I'm going to include mosaic knitting, because even though you're not working with two strands at the same time on a row, it gives the look of color work, and I think it's actually a really good entry for someone who might not be totally comfortable with color work. Is look up mosaic knitting and mosaic patterns. But we are going to do any color work for this KAL. It's going to be at least 3 months long, because this stuff takes time, and also I just like having time for things. I like not being rushed when I'm doing my projects. So it's going to be at least 3 months, maybe longer depending on how people are going along with their projects. But yeah, I encourage you to start looking for some color work projects. I'll start the thread in the group. I already have some prizes for it. So Lisa Ross of Paper Daisy Creations has kindly donated one of her sock collections, and also some single patterns for just some random giveaways within the KAL. So my plan is to just have one thread. There's not going to be an FO thread. It's just going to be one thread, and you just post your progress, post your finished objects, post your chatter. I will keep track of any finished objects, and that way during the KAL I can do some random draws for some of her patterns, and then there will be a grand prize of one of her pattern collections. Plus I think I'm going to throw in a sock set and maybe some needles and some extra little goodies. So yeah, so that will be the final prize. But this all kind of works out because Lisa is currently she does these really fantastic sock collections, and they're kind of themed, and she's just releasing one now. She's doing one pattern a week in April, and it's the Socks of Wonderland. So they're all Alice of Wonderland themed, and she's doing a KAL in her group for that collection. And I think there's at least 2 patterns in there that would fit within the ColorWORK framework. So if you were to do any of those, it would work for her KAL as well, and then you could double dip. And also with her KAL, you only have to make one sock to enter, and she has tons of fabulous prizes. I've contributed one of my sock blank clubs as a prize, so that's there. But I just think it's this would be a great opportunity to try some color work if you've been interested in doing it. I have at least 2 projects in mind for this to start with. I'd love to do one of the pairs of socks from her collection, and I also have a hat in my queue that has been in my queue for years and years and years and years, and it's color work, and I think I might tackle that one. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any patterns in mind, and go to the group and look for the thread and post, and I think this will be a lot of fun, and I hope you have fun with it too. So that's the KAL news. And I think the only thing that's left is the collection. So last week I showed you 2 fabrics, and one was a sheep fabric and one was an owl's. And those poor little owls just got no love. Everybody loved the sheep, so I went with the sheep. And I'm really, really, really happy with how everything turned out. I'm always really happy, but hey, that's okay, right? Be happy with your work? Yeah, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. And I will show you the bag first and then the yarn. I did 2 sock sets and 3 bags, okay? So this is the bag. You chose the little sheeps with their little printed fleeces, and I'm calling this collection Fancy Fleeces because they so fancy, right? So I did 3, I did them all in the wee sidekick size with the little, this is where you can put your stitch markers, and there's your lining in there. So those are the bags. And then I did 2 sock sets. So for the sock sets, I kind of pulled the more muted tones in the fabrics. I do a lot of brights, and so I thought it might be fun to do some of the more muted tones. So for the main skein, I did a gray base, and then I pulled in some of those greens and dusty pinks that were in the fabrics. And there's the other one. You can see there's just these little areas where the colors from the fabrics are pulled in. And then you have a choice between either a dusty pink mini or kind of a dusty green mini. So those are the options this week. I hope you like them. I like them, so I hope you like them too. And then I have finally the fabrics to choose from for the next collection. So I'm going to show you 2 choices. You tell me which one you want to see, and that's what I will work with. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so first one, some villains, some Disney villains. I really love the colors, and I just love, there's lots of Disney villain fabrics, and I think I love every single one. So if you're a big fan of Disney, you might like this one. And then the other one is Muppets. So I love Muppets too. So that's the other one. Let me know which one you love, and I will figure out a way to turn it into a fun collection. I think either one of those, I think the yarns will be really fun. And hopefully soon, because I have my shows coming up, and I pretty much at this point dyed all of my yarn. So I will be getting some new yarn. And speaking of that, I wanted to know what you wanted to see for the yarn. So when I dye yarn for these collections, what are you interested in seeing? Do you like the sock blanks? Do you like the sock sets? Would you like some 100 gram, 75-25 sock yarn? Do you want some non-superwash? Do you want DK worsted? Give me some ideas of what you'd like to see, because after my show at the end of April, I will be doing a big yarn order, and I will be able to bring in some new stuff. So let me know what you want to see. And I think that is it. The only other thing I have to say is last week I mentioned I was going to be doing a trunk show at the Knitting Basket in Rosemont with Angie. And because of a freak mid-April ice storm that just like iced everybody into their houses, we ended up postponing that show, and we've postponed it to the weekend of May 12th, which is Mother's Day weekend, and I think that is the perfect way to spend time with your mom or your friends or your aunts or whatever. It's just to go out to a trunk show, right? A knitting trunk show. How fun is that? And I will have all new stock because I'll have done the show and I'll have ordered new bags, and I'm thinking, or not ordered new bags, but ordered new fabrics for bags. And I'm thinking of maybe doing some Mother's Day themed items. So if you can make it to that, that would be awesome. And I hope to see you there. Or if you're coming to the Frolic in Toronto, I hope to see you there. I still have lots of stuff to do for that. But yeah, that is it for this week. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a fabulous week and you get to make all the things. So I will talk to you soon. Bye.